I don't need to tell you guys what to do. Take it away. The ship is yours. You've pirated it, and you'll. But my idea was, we talked about this yesterday in the rehearsal. John and Nicola, you just talk all things improv, talk shop, and I know you both have themes up your sleeves that you're gonna give to each other and improvise, and maybe have musical dialogues as well.
Right.
So,
well, I'm always thinking about students and explaining and not leaving people in the dust. So, Nicola, what do you think about this Fenaroli subject?
Can you play it for me really quick? Okay, so it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4 subject is what
and
hear that.
If I were watching and trying to learn, what I would want to know is, when you encounter such a thing, and there it is, what is an improviser thinking? What math are you doing in your head? And I just thought it'd be kind of interesting. You say what you would do, I'll say what I would do. We can both play a little bit. I'm at the piano, but I can go to the harpsichord too. I just feel less stupid when I'm at a piano.
Sure.
Anyway,
let me pull that theme up really quick so
okay.
we can talk about it. But I can still expound what I'm thinking when I first encounter a subject.
Yeah.
And I can even tell you what I thought when I saw the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, which besides absolute panic.
Right.
So when I first heard that theme, Fenaroli, that you just played me, I'm thinking this fits into a 1, 2, 3, 4 trope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the subject is basically a decorated version of,
yeah,
right.
So
I know that that theme could be answered tonally or really, and I would probably first think about a nice counter subject and where my answer is going to be. Mm-hmm. Next, I would try to think of a different counter subject that I might try to introduce as like a B section, and then pretend that I'm a genius and put them back together, when in reality I've just planned it out.
They're predestined to fit.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. First thing I need to know is, how does this function as a melody, and how does it function as a bass? And melody, of course, includes upper voice that's an inner voice, because they function the same way, but melody and bass function totally differently. So let's say I start with a bass. So if the bass goes 1, 2, 3, there are all kinds of things you can do over 1, 2, 3. Maybe the simplest one is going to be rule of the octave. This kind of harmonization, which is very, very basic to improvisation, was taught in the Partimento tradition. So I'm going to do something like that. Let me move this camera a little bit. And then as a melody, what could we do? Well, 1, 2 is great, because you can do this. And so once you have basic accompaniments or harmonizations for it to function as a melody and bass, you're okay. Then major and minor, okay? Because some subjects, when you convert them to the relative, everything gets screwed up. These do not include 6 and 7, so there's no question of the melodic issues, raising and lowering. So as a minor, let's say F sharp minor. No real issue here. Also as a soprano, we could do. So at that point, I'm less frightened.
However, the minor version presents an issue right for the answer, because you could actually go major or minor, could you not?
Yes, you could. There's actually a hidden problem in this, which I think of all people to figure it out. You're the greatest one. If you do it in descending order, you start in the soprano,
yeah,
and you go in descending order. You want me to show you my problem, or do you want to find the problem?
Oh, you mean the 6/4 chord that happens immediately?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe explain that to the viewers.
Yeah. So okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me get my camera back here. Sorry, it takes a few button pushes to get the harpsichord.
Sure.
Couldn't quite figure out a better setup. So what John's talking about here is that if I try to answer this from below rather than above. So first, let me just show you what happens when you answer it from above. Or something like that, right? So no real issues because you have this, and then you can quickly go to E major somehow. And that's what I did. However, if you answer it from below,
right.
This implies a weak harmony, right? So John's saying, this is the problem. Is that this implies this chord, which is actually not really allowed in Baroque music except at cadences and on very weak beat passing tones.
Right.
So I can tell you what I would do with this, John. I would actually probably just add a transition to 5.
Right. Yeah.
Etc.
Yeah. So any subject that ends on 1, scale degree 1, on the downbeat where the other one's supposed to come in is going to create this same problem. So even though it looks really simple and without any problems on the page, it actually does create a problem. And this is just the invertibility issue of fourths and fifths. Other intervals invert just fine. Dissonances invert to dissonance, consonant inverts to consonants. But fourths and fifths, one is a dissonance, one is a consonant. So you always have to watch out for that. And I would do the same thing. I would just add a little fake measure.
Exactly.
And get away from it.
I would add that actually the fact that the subject ends on the 3rd scale degree makes this sort of less of a problem.
This one ends on 1.
Because if a student said this to me, I would be like, okay, you're very clever, fine. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it still kind of works out. But if it ends on 1, then you're stuck with this 4th, which is absolutely never good.
No.
The other solution is to no, actually, you can't really answer it in 4 either. So I think really the thing to do is to create a lick. Yeah, I think we're going to.
Well, it's you could answer it in 4, but it's going to sound so weird.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a head scratcher. So yeah, that that was my starting subject. Why don't you present us with a sub? In fact, I would love to talk about your chromatic one, number 4.
Yes,
this is a very interesting set of problems.
Yeah, this was meant to be mean. So full disclosure, John and I before this, we weren't really sure if you guys were going to give us stuff to play. Maybe people are sheepish. So we sort of just sent each other an hour before. I hear some subjects in case we don't get any fodder to work with, which was absolutely not the case. So thank you guys. But one of the subjects I gave him, for the purposes of being a bit cattivo, is this guy. So this is really problematic for a number of reasons. Not only is it weird, but that's sort of, I think, the least of its problems, because it can be harmonized reasonably. Excuse me. Or something like that. But really the issue here is that it begins on the 3rd scale degree, which is extremely uncommon. And worrisome, and absolutely requires this transition that we were talking about. So,
Right.
What else did you see, John?
Well, of course, the chromatic bit, and I think you gave it to me in A minor, but that doesn't matter. Etc. with the tie. The chromatic thing, one instantly has to think about how is that going to serve as a melody in a chromatic scale. There are standard solutions to that. And you took a you took a Neapolitan, I believe, something like that. I also temporarily I did something a little weird. I was playing around with it. And then I did this. Now I can't remember. So if you give it a full kind of chordal harmonization, you can go into C major a little bit with this. Okay, so okay, and then from here, and use the 4/2 to get away from. I don't know. Maybe there's something else besides Neapolitan you can use there. But I found that quite a bit. I just found I could get better voice leading that way. And what we're really talking about here, and I want to mention the Partimento tradition because that's mostly what I draw on to do this, is any motion in a scale, chromatic, intervals, sequences, any motion of a line is going to suggest standard harmonizations. And when you know all of them, you can see a line and go, aha, here's what that can do. So for example, falling chromatic scale. There are several ways that are standard in the Partimento tradition of harmonizing a chromatic scale. One of them I like to call the Martini, named after Padre Martini, because he has an entire prelude that does nothing but this. So let's say we're in D minor, and the way that it works is you alternate two types of chords for everything that's going down. A diminished and then a 4/2. So if I start in D minor, I'm going to take a diminished and then a 4/2 and then a diminished and a 4/2 and a diminished and a 4/2 and a diminished and a 4/2. Okay, and so when I see that falling chromatic scale, and I think if that has to be a bass line, maybe I should just use a Martini. Maybe I need a Martini.
I could use a Martini after all.
And then likewise, in the soprano, that doesn't work. So you need a different set of solutions in the soprano, like...
I think with this subject in particular, though, I think what's particularly pernicious about it, it's funny because if I take out one note, this instantly becomes a bit easier. Right? And then you have all those tricks available to you that you were just expounding for all of us. But because of this intervening A and the resulting tritone, it's very hard to do. And I fully agree with how you harmonize it in the bass. I think it's got to be sort of an F major world. That Neapolitan isn't quite going to sound right. It's just a little bit too crunchy. So I agree. Yeah, so I have to do something like that.
Yeah, I loved it. It was fun. It was a fun little challenge this morning after I stopped panicking.
That wasn't intended to put you on the spot. It was intended for exactly what it
absolutely was intended to. Could we talk about ties? Let's talk about ties.
You mean like the instruments or the slurs?
The ligatures.
Yeah. Sure.
When you see those in a subject, as someone trained in this way of thinking musically, what immediately comes to your mind?
Well, the specific tie on scale degree 4 means something very clear to me, which is double cadence.
Okay, yeah. I'm thinking about suspensions.
Yeah, 7 chords pretty much, or 9 chords. Yes.
Yeah. 6, 5. What's interesting, the way I was trained in piano, a tie is, keep your finger on it. Okay? Yes, don't let go. And if you play Chopin, one of the things you'll notice is that many of his ties in melodies have an accent on the attack because he wants to hear the duration of the tone. So we think, hold on to it. But in this other tradition, it's probably going to be a suspension. And if it's in the if it's in an upper voice, it was most likely going to be either 4/3, but 90% of the time 7/6. If it's in a lower voice, it's going to be a 4/2. And that almost tells you the harmony just by looking at the single line.
Yep, precisely.
So I've got this one by Leclerc, which has some ties in it.
Let's see.
Jean Leclerc,
Is this in minor? And this is a good one for tonal answers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree totally. Those those are all 7/6s.
Yeah, I would harmonize it the same way. And then in the bass, sorry, I'm in a different tuning. And so for those who have not really gotten deeply involved in improvisation, what we're talking about is that in individual lines, there are cues that give you answers. In some cases, the ties, if this is in an upper voice, the tie is going to be this type of suspension, so therefore I need these other notes to go with it. If it's in a bass, it's going to match with these, so I know the ingredients. Likewise, the motions of lines tell us all kinds of things. I'm just curious, Nicola, what's your favorite bass motion?
What's my favorite bass?
Yeah, let's talk favorite bass motions.
You mean like a single interval, or do you mean like a sequence?
Like a sequential bass motion from the Partimento tradition.
That's easy, man.
Okay, man, what do you got? Nice. Yes.
Yeah. It's like ascending to heaven or something. I
it really
can't
is.
get enough of that. Yeah.
Yeah. This
How about
is
you?
known. I would have to say the same one. Although this is called Monte Romanesca. Robert Yardigan named some of these, and so some people will call this Monte Romanesca. Some people will call this ascending fifths, and it is a glorious motion. And there's a paper by a guy I know named John Rice. And he talks about how this is reserved for the moments of the sublime
Yes,
in music.
It has to be.
Yeah. So in Mozart, for example, tonic, dominant, tonic, dominant, for the whole exposition. And then you get in the middle of the development, and it's time to see the face of God, and there it is, the Monte Romanesca. And it's everywhere. It's in Monteverdi. It's absolutely everywhere. So
I can say one more thing about this, actually. I was just talking about this with a student right before this today, which is one reason I like this sequence. Two other reasons I like this sequence, other than the fact that it's utterly gorgeous, and I'm glad we both agree, is that if you start playing the Romanesca, which is one of the first things that you learn, you can actually kind of make a left turn into this.
Yes.
So you're not committed, if you're going along and you're about to go. You can just do The other thing I like about it is that you can actually continue it two ways. So there's the version that I played, which I really like because of those gorgeous suspensions at the end. But you can also do something I see a lot more often in classical and romantic music, although Bach does this in his second orchestral suite in minor, which is that you can actually break the pattern after two iterations. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
And do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So it's a versatile sequence for that reason, and it's gorgeous. So it's something I try to keep in my back pocket.
And the teacher in me is dying to explain this to everybody.
Please.
So the way it works is that the bass is rising by fifths. So let's go to C major. And so it's going up by fifths, but of course we wouldn't really do that, so it's going to be fourths and fifths. Each chord theoretically takes what normies call root position and what fuddy-duddies call chords of the fifth. Ain't I right? something like that. However, the cool way that they did this, and this was taught to children in the Neapolitan tradition, is that each one is suspended. And it gets even cooler. If you look at the upper voices, what they do.
Yeah, sure, they're in canon, of course.
Absolutely, they're in canon. It's an automatic canon. You have idiot-proof invertible counterpoint, and you can switch them. So, the next
in fact,
problem.
All sequences, I would say, are absolutely fertile grounds for canons.
Yeah, they're absolutely idiot-proof, which I like, being a certified idiot. Sometimes I joke with Improv Planet students about, if you want to decorate this and not just chunk it out, it's actually kind of difficult because with these two voices. So I've played around a little bit with this.
Right, yeah.
So sometimes you can get away with things like that. And then my final favorite thing about this is you start in C. And if you go too far, you'll end up in B because you're rising by fifths. So here's here's the exit. Ready? Okay. And
can I offer an alternative exit?
Okay, all right. What do you got?
I'm not sure if this is actually going to work. I just kind of thought of this as you were playing.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess it sort of works.
Yeah, that one's more taught. I think maybe Fenaroli taught that. I think I've seen that taught in treatises where you get good. Here and you just do this down a third, up a step, down a third, up a step to get out of it.
Sure.
So this other one that I was doing.
I really like yours.
Well, this is called Fonte Romanesca, and there's a big paper on it by Vasily Buros from Northwestern University. I don't know if he's the first guy ever to name it and find it in Mozart and stuff, but it's a worthwhile thing to read, and it's in Corelli, it's in Mozart, it's absolutely it's really delightful.
What I love most about yours is that 9 chord I mentioned earlier, because there's something I find incredibly satisfying about tonicizing something like this and then reintroducing that flat 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time I really noticed this was in Dittersdorf, of all places. And I sort of went nuts. I copied it out by hand, and I said, "What is this? I have to know." It's probably in my notes still somewhere, a whole page of raving about this.